What if the most explosive secrets in American politics were sitting in a vault, sealed, protected, and hidden from the very people who deserve to know the truth? This morning, the fight over the Epstein files erupted in Congress, and it's not just another debate. It's a moment that could decide whether decades of silence finally break or whether one of the darkest scandals in modern history stays buried. Think about it. For years, whispers have swirled about billionaires, politicians, and celebrities tied to Epstein's shadowy world. Names hinted, connections rumored but never confirmed. Now lawmakers are faced with a choice: release the files and risk detonating a political earthquake, or keep them locked away and confirm the public's worst suspicions. And the shocking part, some of the very voices who once demanded transparency may now be trying to shut the door. The question is, what are they so afraid of?
I introduced a very simple amendment that directs the Attorney General to release the Epstein files. It's the same amendment as the one working its way in the House, and the same one that my good friend from Oregon, who just spoke on another issue, has been so active in championing. As soon as today, Republicans have a chance to take a step further in releasing the files. The same files that for years they have said they wanted released. If Republicans vote no, they'll be saying to the American people, you should not see the Epstein files. I asked my Republican colleagues, after all those years you spent calling for accountability, for transparency, for getting to the bottom of these awful crimes, why won't you vote yes? Let me remind my colleagues of the things they have said for themselves on the Epstein issue. After all, Leader McConnell said, quote, there's no question the accusations against Epstein are horrendous, and I think it's good news that they're being pursued further. That's what McConnell said. Whatever happened to that? The current majority leader, Senator Thune, said less than 2 months ago, yes, he said, we're all interested in making sure that justice is served and there is full disclosure and transparency. And what about Senator Blackburn, who said it's imperative we figure out who was involved with Jeffrey Epstein? That's the only way we're going to break apart this $150 billion a year human trafficking, sex trafficking ring. Or Senator Johnson, who said, the alleged victims are entitled to know what happened. The American people are entitled to know what happened. Well, I could not agree more with all of them. To my Republican colleagues, I say, to every senator, I say, this is your chance now. You can vote right now to give transparency to the American people and reveal the files, or you can vote to hide the very files you've claimed to desperately want released for years. The choice lies with our Republican colleagues today. If Republicans vote no, they'll be saying the American people should not see the Epstein files. I say to my Republican colleagues again, if you vote no, I say to every senator, if you vote no, you'll be saying the American people should not see the Epstein files, plain and simple. The American people deserve transparency. The American people are sick of Donald Trump's endless string of pathological lies and cover-ups when it comes to the Epstein files. Trump lied when he promised he'd release the Epstein files. Trump lied when he said the FBI never told him if his name was mentioned in the files. Trump lied when he said he never wrote that gross, salacious letter to Epstein on his 50th birthday. And he lied last week when he called the whole thing nothing but a Democratic hoax. It's not a hoax, it's real, and Americans want to get to the bottom of it. Americans want transparency. From Trump, we're hearing one brazen lie after the other. From Trump, we're hearing a massive cover-up. Americans are wondering, what the heck is Donald Trump hiding? Well, we can take back that veil. We can release those files, take a big step to releasing those files by voting yes on my amendment. It's clear Donald Trump can't be trusted to tell the truth to the American people, so it should be up to the Senate to do so. The Senate must force the issue. And I say to my Republican friends, as long as you keep voting no, America's going to lose trust in government and lose trust in you. I yield the floor. And note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
The amendment introduced on the Senate floor may seem simple at first glance: direct the Attorney General to release the Epstein files. But beneath that straightforward language lies a turning point in America's struggle with transparency, power, and accountability. For decades, the Epstein case has hovered in the shadows: half-truths, sealed documents, and unanswered questions about who knew what and who may have helped cover it up. The files hold the potential to answer those questions, to shine light on connections that reach into politics, business, and global elite circles. What makes this moment different is that it's not just about one man who can no longer face trial. It's about whether Congress is willing to let the truth finally come out, or whether the culture of secrecy that enabled Epstein will continue unchecked. Senators now stand at a crossroads: either side with transparency and the rights of survivors, or protect a wall of silence that has shielded the powerful for years. The stakes couldn't be higher, because this isn't merely a procedural vote, it's a moral test, one that will reveal whether lawmakers are prepared to confront the darkness or continue turning away. For years, lawmakers have spoken loudly about the need for transparency when it comes to the Epstein case. Their statements were clear, even forceful. One leader in the Senate once declared that the accusations surrounding Epstein were horrendous and that further investigation was good news. Another said it was imperative that the public see the truth, insisting that survivors deserved answers. Others promised that disclosure was the only way to dismantle the networks of trafficking and corruption tied to Epstein's shadowy empire. Even figures like Pam Bondi, who has been at the center of fiery debates about accountability and integrity in the justice system, are reminders of how the political world has long grappled with these questions. But words are one thing, action is another. Now, with an amendment on the floor that could finally release these files, many of those same voices seem hesitant, quiet, or even opposed. That contrast raises an uncomfortable question: were those earlier calls for justice sincere, or were they convenient talking points? The American people remember what was said. Survivors remember what was promised. If leaders step back now, it signals that political comfort matters more than truth, and that's why this moment carries such weight. The name Jeffrey Epstein has become synonymous with secrecy, power, and unanswered questions. What we know is disturbing enough: a convicted sex offender with access to private islands, luxury jets, and mansions in New York and Florida. What we don't know, what remains sealed in those files, is who enabled him, who traveled in his circles, and how far his influence really reached. The list of potential connections spans billionaires, politicians, business leaders, and celebrities. Each detail that has leaked over the years has only deepened public suspicion that Epstein's reach went far beyond one man's crimes. The files at the center of this debate may hold names, records, and communications that connect dots the public has long been kept from seeing. They may reveal not just friendships but possible complicity, people who knew enough to act but chose to remain silent. That's why the fight to release them matters so much. These documents are more than paperwork. They represent the missing pieces of a puzzle that could expose how wealth and influence shield predators from accountability. And if those patterns are revealed, the scandal won't just belong to Epstein, it will belong to the entire system that protected him. The scandal surrounding Epstein was never just about one individual. His crimes were horrific, but what made them possible was a system built to protect the wealthy and powerful. For years, institutions that should have investigated, prosecuted, or intervened looked the other way. Laws were bent, deals were struck, and accountability was delayed until it was too late. That's the real story hiding in the shadows, the machinery of privilege that allowed Epstein to thrive in plain sight. The sealed files are more than evidence against a single man. They may expose patterns of complicity, officials who ignored warnings, executives who facilitated access, and networks that profited while victims suffered. If opened, they could reveal not just names but also the strategies and safeguards used to shield elites from justice. And once those structures are revealed, the implications go far beyond one scandal. They raise the question of how many other abuses have been buried under the weight of money and influence. This is why releasing the files matters. It's not just about closing the book on Epstein, it's about confronting a culture of secrecy that continues to endanger the vulnerable and undermine public trust. Inside the Senate chamber, the push to release the Epstein files has escalated into more than a policy dispute. It has become a direct challenge to political credibility. Lawmakers who once spoke passionately about the need for truth are now being confronted with their own words. Quotes, interviews and past statements are being read back to them like evidence in a trial. Each one is a reminder: you promised justice, you promised transparency, you promised answers. Now the question is whether those promises will be honored when it truly counts. The pressure is mounting because the stakes are no longer abstract. Survivors of Epstein's crimes are watching. The American people are watching, and every hesitation, every attempt to block disclosure only fuels suspicion that something deeper is being hidden. Refusing to act doesn't just look like political caution, it looks like complicity. It sends the message that protecting reputations matters more than protecting victims. That is why this fight is so explosive. The vote on this amendment is more than a legislative choice, it's a defining moment that will reveal who stands for accountability and who prefers silence when the truth cuts too close to power. And as names like Pam Bondi are brought up in conversations about legal integrity, the debate takes on an even sharper edge. How far will officials go to shield or expose the truth? At the heart of this debate are not politicians but the survivors whose lives were shattered by Epstein's crimes. For them, the sealed files are not just documents, they represent recognition, truth, and the possibility of long-denied justice. Every time the files remain hidden, it sends a painful message that the voices of the powerful matter more than the voices of the victims. For survivors who have already carried the burden of silence, secrecy feels like a second betrayal. The public feels that same frustration. Ordinary people see the walls of privilege protecting elites while accountability for everyday citizens comes swiftly and harshly. This double standard erodes trust in government and fuels the belief that the system is rigged for the few. Releasing the files would not erase the harm, but it would show that the truth can no longer be buried. It would prove that justice does not stop at the doors of wealth and influence. That's why pressure from the public is so crucial. Politicians act when they know people are watching, when silence is no longer acceptable. The demand is simple: survivors deserve answers, and the nation deserves transparency without excuses, without delay. In the end, this debate is bigger than politics, bigger than party lines, and bigger than any single personality. The amendment to release the Epstein files is a test not of procedure but of principle. Lawmakers must decide whether to stand with truth or continue hiding behind secrecy. Survivors deserve to know who enabled years of abuse. The public deserves to see whether powerful institutions protected predators instead of victims. And the nation deserves leaders willing to confront the ugliest truths, even when those truths come with consequences. This moment is about trust. Trust in government, trust in justice, trust that no one is above the law. Every vote against transparency chips away at that trust, telling the American people that the system values silence over accountability. But every vote for disclosure sends the opposite message: that integrity still matters, that promises still mean something, and that justice can reach even the most untouchable. The files are more than pages of names and dates, they are a mirror held up to America. What lawmakers choose now will reveal whether this country confronts its shadows or allows them to grow darker. The choice is clear: the world is watching, and so are you. If you believe survivors deserve answers, if you believe transparency matters, and if you believe no one should be above the law, make your voice heard. Share this video, subscribe for more breakdowns, and keep demanding the truth, because the fight for accountability doesn't end here, it starts with us.